All right. Welcome to another episode of Connect and Politic. We're here with a special guest. Please introduce yourself by telling us your name, where you're currently located, and your favorite snack.
Hey, I'm Kristen B. Carter, and I am in Burbank, California right now in my living room. It is quarantine week 20 something. My favorite snack is French fries. I
Huh.
love French fries.
Are these from a specific place or homemade?
So I'm a big fan of Wendy's French fries if I'm gonna get anything like that's fast food. But I've been making French fries at home in the quarantine. There's like three snacks I love right now. It would be French fries, ginger ale, and then like French toast sticks. Not a snack, but those are the three things I've been eating a lot in the quarantine.
Hold on. You said French fries, ginger ale, and French toast sticks?
Yes.
Where did that combination come from? And
Oh,
then,
it's actually, so it's not combined. It's just like every so often, if I think, oh, what do I want right now? I really want some French fries. So I just make French fries. I just get them at, the grocery store and I make them at home.
uh,
And then in terms of ginger ale, that's now my favorite beverage. So before, I don't remember being that into ginger ale, but now I'm actually into a particular brand. So Seagram's ginger ale is amazing.
uh,
And then with French toast sticks, I just decided, oh, I'll try some French toast sticks again, getting into this whole routine of grocery shopping all the time. I'm like, oh, I'll try these French toast sticks. And they are the bomb. So get some cinnamon French toast sticks.
so these are, what's the brand? Is it from a,
Honestly, it's a no-name brand. So I go to Walmart and honestly, I'm not going to pull it out of my freezer, but honestly, it's a no-name brand.
yeah,
Oh,
okay, that's good, that's good. Do you remember your favorite food as a child?
my favorite food?
Yeah, as a child.
Hmm. I was always really into breakfast food. I still am. So I would say my great grandmother, so my grandmother's mother, she used to make what's called eggs in a bowl. Honestly, it's soft boiled eggs, but she used to call them eggs in a bowl. So that was my favorite food growing up.
Wow. And what's your favorite food, your favorite meal as an adult?
My favorite meal as an adult, I would say if I'm home with my mom and we're just hanging out, then I would say um, fried fish. So like fried fish, my mom makes fried fish, shrimp, French fries, salad, and then another side. So I like that a lot. And also I'm a big fan of jerk chicken, rice, plantains. So it just depends on the mood.
Yeah. Are
Yeah.
you, so the jerk chicken and plantain and rice, is this homemade or you get it from a certain spot?
No. So there's only one spot, there's one Caribbean spot that I like where I live. It's called Coley's. And so they hook it up. So that is not homemade. But that restaurant is a family oriented restaurant. It's family owned. So
Uh,
ever since I moved here, like I would take my friends before the quarantine, of course. I would take my friends and we would go there. If you're ever sick, they have this hot pineapple ginger tea and it knocks it right out. So I got to know the owners very well. So anytime I would go there, the owners would sit down and talk with us. But now they're doing to-go orders. So just to support, I try to support at least 5 local businesses a week. I'm very cognizant of that. So they're one of them. So I just make sure that I get like a jerk chicken plate every so often.
nice. When was the last time you had jerk chicken?
Mm, maybe about a month and a half ago. Yeah.
What's your fondest memory from childhood?
My fondest memory from childhood. I have a few of them. I would say, so I'm originally from Newark, New Jersey, and my mom and I was raised in a studio apartment with my mom and my grandmother. So we have very humble beginnings compared to now. And even though we lived in a studio apartment and my mom was a single parent, she always had my friends over. So my friends, most of my friends had their mom and their dad at home, but everyone always came to our house. We were the smallest house, and there was one particular time where like I had roller skates. I love roller skating now too, but I had roller skates and I would share my roller skates with one of my friends. So literally I would have one skate on and I'd be sliding down the corridor and she would have the other skate and slide down the corridor like skating. So I would say that period is not specific. That's one moment, but I would say that time frame, I look at that time really fondly because it really shaped a lot of who I am now.
Yeah. Do you miss anything about being a child?
I miss the simplicity of being a child and not having to think about bills and the world. I'm sure we were going through some kind of chaos when I was 7 and 8, but I don't remember that as a kid. And also, I remember even going through a lot of challenges. I used to dance. So I used to just take dance classes all the time. So I miss just like pouring like every bit of my energy into dancing. I miss that a lot.
Yeah. Do you still dance?
I do, but not formally. So I dance at home. If, my birthday party, I cut up. You got to come to one of my birthday parties. But
I will.
like, that's the time where I bust out Single Ladies choreography every year still, even though that song is very old at this point. So everybody knows to clear the, to clear the floor. But yeah, I really miss dancing all the time like I used to when I was younger.
Yeah. So given the quarantine, are you, partying it up by yourself?
No, I will say when the quarantine first happened, so when we first got on lockdown, I have my skates in the corner, which is why I'm looking at them. So I would skate around my house. I still listen to a lot of the DJs. So D Nice and Ninth Wonder I listen to. So I'll party that way. But now that we are fifth month of quarantine, I'm struggling with things to do. Like I'm the party animal. So I've been like putting together virtual parties and Zoom events and game nights. And, I did a Facebook Live series that I probably will do again. But now I'm finding like this is where the struggle, like we're in the valley right now. So there's no ending in sight. In the beginning, I was like, come on, guys, we'll be fine. And now I'm like, Friday night, I didn't know what to do with myself. I watched Moesha episodes. I'm very excited about Moesha being on Netflix. So I watched Moesha episodes pretty much all of Friday night.
Wow. Yeah, it's the no end in sight and the uncertainty it's tricky.
Yeah, because I feel like I'm a glass half full kind of person, optimistic. I try to look on the bright side all the time. And so I would say like the first 15 weeks, I wasn't even thinking about the things that I missed because I feel like it's pointless for me to talk about, oh, I miss going out or brunches or this and that. But this particular week, like last week and this particular week, I just want to do normal things.
Yeah.
Except being in the house. I'm in the house a lot. So
Yeah. And going back to your childhood, how do you think your childhood helped groom you into the person you are today?
I absolutely think it helped tremendously. I think there's a few factors I had mentioned that my mom was a single parent and I was raised in very tight quarters, but then I went to a boarding school. And so those two moments of my life, I think really shaped my perspective just in terms of how I see the world and how I perceive people and others. And then also just dealing with different types of people. Having gone to a boarding school and understanding that I was the different one, being that I was one of 7 Black students in my class. So it really prepared me for corporate America. It prepared me for communicating and interacting with a lot of different cultures and races and things like that. So I would definitely say, and also it taught me perseverance, I'll say. I think both seasons of my life, my younger childhood into my preteen years and my teen years, I think both of those seasons taught me perseverance. So when I go through challenges now, I don't think I've been through anything tougher than boarding school. I've been through some tough moments, but I would say that boarding school still is number one. So that experience helps me, whenever I'm facing challenges or whenever I'm trying to get over a particular hurdle and be optimistic. I reflect on those times because I had a very specific moment that basically shaped the rest of my life. So I can share that if you like. But
Yeah. We'll come back to that.
okay.
So let's park that boarding school and those pivotal moments. We'll definitely come back to it.
Okay.
So what do you think? There's a slight feedback. It sounds like.
Oh, do you want me to try putting in my headphones?
Sure, you can try that. Let's try it.
Okay. I'm not sure why that is. So are you getting a huge echo?
When I speak, I can hear it. Like it sounds like
Oh,
there's a
okay.
delay.
Then it might help for me to put on headphones. Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. Is
Can
it
you hear
better?
me? Yeah.
I
Can
can
you
hear
hear me?
you.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. All right. So, what are you say you grew up with your mom and your grandmother, right?
Mhm.
And
Yes.
so, what are some of the most important lessons you learned from both of them?
I would say the most important lesson I learned from my mom is that life is a marathon, not a sprint. And that's because I think we grew up together. So I watched a lot of her life lessons and challenges just by being with her. She was always very honest with me about things that she was going through. And so I've seen her transform her life and in turn transform my life. So I would say definitely that life is a marathon. Um, and then also too, I was raised by many women in my family. So my mother, my grandmother, my great grandmother, and my great great grandmother. So
Wow.
I had all four of them. So we had 5 generations. So I've learned very pivotal things from each of them. So with my grandmother, so I guess I'll go in order. I mentioned my mom. For my grandmother, I would say just the power of patience and tenacity. I think that she's really shown me that if you are steadfast and if you sort of never change, if you never change within yourself, then it doesn't matter what other situations are happening. Like you'll be aligned, you'll be planted, you'll be grounded if you just stay who you are. So I think that's what I've learned from her. My great grandmother, I really learned like competitiveness from her. It's funny, I had a game day with one of my friends yesterday and we kept playing until he won. Like we were playing Scrabble and I kept beating him and I was like, I'm not even gonna let up. I can't let him win. He's got to just win on his own. And it made me think about my great grandmother when she taught me how to play Connect Four. She beat me probably like 32 times to the point where I started crying and I stormed off. And she was like, Chris, come back here. And she was like, we're gonna play until you win fair and square. I'm not gonna be easy on you. We're gonna play until you win. And that's the heart of a champion. Don't be around here being pickle puss and acting like a brat. Get back here and we are gonna play. And so she made me play. And
Wow.
we played until I won. And that really stood out to me because that just taught me how to be a champion, how to be a fair loser, and then also how to be a fair winner, and then also to just keep at things until you win. So that's something that's really stood out with her. And then my great great grandmother, she passed when I was 4 years old. So my whole family says that I was her first, or she was my first playmate. So she passed when she was 99. I was 4. So when I was born, she was 95. And so what I think I learned really from her legacy is the importance of family because my family is really tight. We have a big family. And I think that she always kept everybody close. So no matter what is going on, you can always come home, is
Yeah.
basically what I feel like I've learned from her and then the rest of my mothers too.
Wow. Yeah, that's a rich family legacy uh, history. Yeah, you have a lot to I mean, you're on the shoulders of a lot of giants. That's good.
And I can feel that my middle name, I share my great great grandmother's middle name, Victoria, and I'm like so honored by that. There's three of us that have her middle name in the family, and I'm really grateful for that. I think about it every single day, and just very aware of the fact that I have a lot of that history, that heritage, and that there's been so much poured into me. So I try to make it a point to pour into others,
Yeah.
because I know the energy and the sacrifice and the tears. There's probably way more than I even think, but I think about that quite a bit.
Yeah. What are your favorite things to do for self-care?
I really like to run and walk. I've been running and like I run about 6 miles, and then when I'm out for walks, I'll walk for about 2 hours outside because there's really nothing else to do. So I would say walking and running. Also, I love to roller skate. So that's something that just gives me a lot of joy in terms of self care. I try to do things that give me joy. So I do that. I would say even self care is watching Moesha. I'm very excited that Moesha's on Netflix. I grew up watching that show, so I was a big fan. I would also say I write in my journal and meditate. I love meditation. I love just reflecting on my journey and things that I want to also move forward with. So I would say meditation. And what else? I'd also say connecting with others. I really truly enjoy that. I think that as an extrovert, just trying to make sure that I'm being as helpful as possible. Like honestly, that is part of what gives me joy. So.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Going back to the running and walking piece, are you doing that now, where you're literally running for 6 miles and then walking for 2 hours every day?
So not every day. So I've been running. I've run between 4 and 6 miles for a few years. So maybe every other day I'll go running. But the walking is definitely something that I've done in the quarantine just so that I can be outside. So I'll do that maybe twice a week. Now there was a period I really enjoyed 2 hours. Now I'm like, oh, I can scale back. Because again, we're in the valley. So now I'm like, let me do it for an hour and then I'll try to do something else. I've decided I'm going to start doing some puzzles. I've been making keychains. So I just try to do different things I used to do when I was younger that brought me a lot of excitement.
Oh man, the mental health piece is a whole nother conversation. I mean, we can tap into it as well, but um, yeah. So are you connecting a lot with family and friends? You know, via Zoom, phone calls, meetups.
I would say Zoom and phone call for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely.
What are some things you're doing for self growth?
Things that I'm doing for self growth. I would say I try to plot out my goals. So I try to plot out my goals and not even too far in advance. So I try to plot out at most 6 to 9 months because the world changes so much. I don't necessarily believe in planning 2 to 5 years. I'll write out things I know I want to accomplish in life, but I try not to give it a timestamp. But I would say, in terms of, yeah, 6 to 9 months, I try to look ahead. In terms of other self growth, I I went to a therapist from the end of 2018 until the start of the quarantine. My therapist and I have seen each other once inside the quarantine. And
Great.
I started doing hypnotherapy. So one of my friends is now getting certified, and I decided that I would try it. And I think I'm going to move to that as opposed to doing regular therapy. I think I'm going to move to that. I really got a lot out of it. And
Mm,
so in our first session, we took a look at my emotional self, spiritual self, physical self, and creative self, and like my subconscious talk to me. It was very interesting. And so I would be really intrigued to continue that. So I have another session in September.
Yeah, let's double tap on the piece about you've said you've only seen your therapist once during the quarantine.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've spoken to a lot of people, and they like some people even have three therapists. Like they like this the quarantine has led to this, like there's so much they have to work through, you know,
Uh-huh.
and given the isolation. And so it's interesting that it seemed like you flipped it, right? So I'm assuming before the quarantine, you have more frequent interactions with your therapist, and then now it's less. Uh,
Well, I would say one, she's a little older, so I'm trying to be sensitive to that. And then two, I have a few friends I talk to every day now. That's what I will say in the quarantine is the people I've talked to have switched. So I have two friends specifically that I speak to every single day that I hardly ever spoke to before the quarantine. And so we talk about a lot of deep stuff. So perhaps, I mean, they could be AKA my therapist and I could be theirs. But
yeah.
yeah, there's specific people that I talk to now for sure.
No, that's good. That's good. Yeah. So actually, I guess I should say this on the air, because the therapy piece have come up a lot in the interviews, and just to be transparent, I've never seen a therapist, and partially is because I tend to have the same kind, like the way we're having this conversation, where this reflection and talking through things, etc. That's my baseline. And so just how now you're having a lot of um, in-depth conversations with your friends, like the two friends you named, and which has lessened your need, I guess, to seek a therapist. So that's why I've always found it interesting when someone brings up therapy. And I'm always like, well, don't you, don't you have close people that you're close with that you can really walk through and talk through? But apparently, like a lot of folks don't, and so there is the need for therapy.
I
Um,
always thought I've been really close with a few friends. I'm really close with my mom. But I think at a point I wanted somebody who didn't know me just to provide some support. And I wanted that sort of ear.
mm,
So that was the reason I decided to go to therapy. But yeah, inside the quarantine, also too, just saving money, just thinking about, okay, I think I don't necessarily need to go to a therapist. I like her, but I don't necessarily need to go.
mm,
So that was sort of the reasoning behind making the decision not to go as much.
yeah, that's good. Some others literally felt like it was a life or death situation.
Right, right, right,
Yeah.
right.
And so, um, given what you just said, is how do you reduce distractions?
How do I reduce distractions? I would say really focusing on the task at hand. And I know that that sounds pretty cliche, but I try to, one, take a breather. So I'll back up and say it's not just distractions. I'll say that distractions to me are really my mind playing tricks on me, like I won't achieve this thing, or I won't finish this deadline, or I'm not good enough for this particular situation, or whatever. And so what I try to do is be really present with myself, try to breathe and focus on my breathing, focus on saying affirmations to myself, and that pretty much settles me down. So on a deeper level in terms of distractions, those are some things that have really helped me.
Mhm. And do you have any good habits that you practice regularly? I mean, I know you've already talked about You just talked about breathing. You talked about working out, walking. Any additional good habits that you practice regularly? And then if you do, how did you develop those habits?
So I think I do really well with some sort of regimen. I'm not quite sure how people, I know some folks that it's sort of like a free for all. I don't think that that works for my personality. So I think I need some sort of structure or some sort of rhythm in how I express myself and how I align myself for the day. So it's really important to me. And it doesn't have to go in a particular order, but I think that running helps clear my mind. So it's not even just about fitness, but it really is about sorting out my thoughts. So sometimes my thoughts can be a little bit jumbled, but when I run or walk, all of a sudden there's a stream, a very clear stream of consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
I'd also say the same thing about showers. Sometimes when I'm brainstorming, I brainstorm the best when I'm running or when I'm in the shower. And I think it's because my mind is at ease. So it's just more free flowing as opposed to sometimes when you want something so bad or when you're sort of pressed against a deadline and oh this thing needs to happen, it doesn't happen. It's always those moments where you really try to calm yourself that I find I have the best brainstorms and my head is really clear. So I think that that's a really good habit. I also say writing things down. So you mentioned distractions and also just having clearness of mind. I try to sometimes write to myself about what I'm thinking and feeling, almost as if it's another person. So I'm writing to myself to vent. That's one thing. And another thing is if I'm trying to work through an issue, I'll jot down different ideas or different thoughts and try to get it all on paper. That helps me clear my mind as well. So those things I think have been really good habits for me. And how I develop those, I think I think it just takes time and practice. I'm trying to think back to high school and college because I think in my 20s I developed a lot of really good skills. But I think it started in high school and college, very small, just like outlining tasks I want to do or thinking about ways I felt. I would always vent in that way. But I think in my 20s, when I wanted to dig a little deeper, I think I just tried on different things and then certain things fit. Like folks figure out, I keep mentioning the running piece because you can, do aerobics classes, or I love hot yoga. I had to discover hot yoga. And so I think just in discovery, I was able to find some things that have really worked for keeping me sane and keeping me healthy.
Yeah. You mentioned writing to clear your mind and capture your thoughts. If you were to write a book, what would it be about?
So I am actually sketching, I'm brainstorming a book right now, but what I plan to write about, well, I have a brand called Trust Your Magic, and it's all about trusting your gifts and your talents and trusting who you are to get to the next phase of your life and to also champion others. And so inside that book, what I plan to do is take some excerpts of my life and share vulnerably, but then also create like a do now section for people to think back on some of their most revealing times. So I'm basically picking 10 to 12 moments in my life from the time I was younger all the way to now that really left a great impression on me or really helped me get to the next level. So that's what my book would be about. It's like picking different moments. Because I think we all have these aha moments. If we really sit back and think about it,
Yeah.
there's like these pivotal moments that we all have that get us to our next without even really being cognizant of it. And so I enjoy sitting back and thinking about, man, like the reason I love getting people together. There's a reason why I'm always the person that starts the party or hosts the party. When I was younger, I moved around a ton and didn't necessarily have that center. And so I always was the person to get friends together and be the pen pal. I was a pen pal at like 7 and 8 to the point where my friends' parents were writing to me because I think they felt bad that like their kids weren't writing. But it's always been in me to be the first to start something. So it makes sense that even now when it comes to parties, I'm always the one that plans it. But now I'm in a different season, being in my mid-30s, of like, oh, I need to allow others to show up for me. And like, that's like that's the tricky part. It's like allowing where you're not always the one doing. So
Yeah.
that's the other side of it.
Yeah. Two things to what you just said. One is when you're done with this book and part of your press run, we have to do a part 2 or part 3, whatever it is, to
Sure.
dive into the book. The second part is the allowing others. How do you said in the season in your life, you're trying to, that's what one of the things you're tackling. How do you deal with, because you know, I have firsthand experience on on this. And so, how do you deal with the inevitable disappointment of allowing others to do what you normally do, and they don't show, or they don't do what you would normally do?
Oh, it's hard. It's just hard. I think that no one would know. It's a little bit of a tailspin emotionally, because you go into, see, this is why I do it. And this, and why can't people do things like me, or whatever the conversation is.
Yeah.
And so I've had to learn, and again, this is something I'm still learning, that I can trust myself, but I can also trust the universe, and that whatever I'm supposed to experience is what is for me. But no, it definitely, I've had some disappointments, and I've definitely gone into, this is why I do things myself and all of that. And so I think I'm still just working through it, but also understanding that if someone doesn't keep their promise or meet their promise, that one, it doesn't mean that they don't care. That's number one. And number two, it'll just all work out in the end, even if it's uncomfortable. Like, I get to trust myself. But again, I'm saying that, and like, even in the back of my mind, I'm like, yeah, I have work to do there. I have work to do there.
Oh man. Is there
I
something?
trust myself more than anyone else. So
Yeah.
I like afraid if I have to do things where and I love teams. So I'm saying that, but it's like, if I'm leading the team, then I love it. If I'm not leading the team, I'm like, I just don't know that this is going to work out.
Yeah.
And I don't think it helps, just the line of work that I do. I'm in the driver's seat quite a bit. And so I think that the work that I have selected for myself and for my life is in line with my personality. So I need to create some more space for folks to just come in. I need to allow folks to love on me as well. So
Yeah.
I'm a work in progress there.
All right. So let's go into what you do in your professional life, and is it any different than what you dream about doing as a kid?
Sure. Okay. So I'm a TV writer and producer, and I'm also an entrepreneur and speaker. And so I'm a multi hyphenate, and it combines a lot of the things that I've loved to do since I was younger. So I love thinking about this. So when I was little, I wanted to be, well, I'll start here. I wanted to be a pediatrician and a gerontologist because I wanted to cure arthritis. So my great grandmother had really bad arthritis, and I wanted to cure her. So that was initially what I wanted. However, in high school, my science dreams were totally burned. I had a science teacher that I really didn't like, and it was part of my boarding school experience. I really felt like it killed any interest that I had in science, to the point that I took 2 math classes in order to avoid science.
Wow.
So that is a true story. But in terms of what I loved doing when I was younger, I always danced and performed. I used to put together like a radio show for my mom, and there were different things I always used to do. So I loved performing. So when I was in high school, I was trying to decide if I wanted to be a music video director or a choreographer. So those were things I was really interested in. And then as I continued to explore television, I moved into writing for award shows, entertainment news, different music specials and then began writing and producing those. So I would say I'm pretty much in line with the things that I loved because, when I was in high school and I used to tape music videos on VHS so that I could bring them back to my boarding school because there was nothing that I liked. It was like Dawson's Creek versus Moesha. It was like a cultural battle with everything. And I keep saying Moesha only because I've been watching it on Netflix. But like everything that I was into, no one was into at school. So I used to like import stuff. So, I used to record music videos and I would keep a log of the music videos that I wrote, and I would keep what's called time code. So essentially, if you looked on the VHS bar, it wasn't necessarily the time of day. It would be these other numbers, and I would keep track of that. I had no idea the first time I interned. So I interned right out of high school. And so my job was taking time code. I was like, wait a second, I've been doing this since I was like 8 years old, not knowing. I had no idea that that's what it was. So your end point of when a video starts and then your end point of when a video ends, you just keep track of that. So a lot of the things that I started doing when I got into television, I had been doing since I was younger.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot there. We have to do a part 2 or part 3, but just a little deep dive.
Oh.
What's your favorite, your top 3 favorite music videos of all time?
Thriller. Are You That Somebody by Aaliyah. Gosh, it's so funny. It's a Beyonce video. I'll say Single Ladies. I'll just say Single Ladies. I'm really big on choreography, as I'm sure you get to all 3 videos.
Right.
You're dancing the entire time. I know all the dance moves to all 3. And I think that all 3 just represent different seasons. But no, Thriller to me is the ultimate, hands down. There's never going to be anything better. I think a 1B would be Remember the Time. I love Remember the Time as well. So yeah, I grew up like loving Michael Jackson.
Yep. Like the rest of us. Yeah, I mean, there's so much. But we'll end up being here for a few days.
I'm glad that you think I'm interesting. Thank you.
Is there something that you're looking forward to that excites you?
Something that I'm looking forward to. So I would say that I'm in a time in my career where I've been really blessed and thankful the types of projects that I'm attracted to and that are attracted to me. I'm really into music, financial literacy, education, championing our community. And I think that, and I have a workshop around this, but essentially the way that I go after shows, I always go after shows that I love and projects I already love and just passion projects. And so I'm really excited about continuing to grow in that space. So I'm getting to the point where I'm beginning to show run projects. So I'm really excited about that. That's been on my goal list and my dream sheet for a while. So I'm happy that I'm at that point where I can lead teams. I'm really excited about that. And then I would also say I'm really excited for what I think is some sort of love journey that's happening. So also inside the quarantine, I have been very honest that even though I enjoy living by myself and enjoy being a single woman, that I think that there are added bonuses to partnership. And so I've always known that, but I think that I've been a little bit more vulnerable with myself in terms of what am I doing or who am I being in order to attract the type of mate that I desire. And so ever since this hypnotherapy at the beginning of July, I would say there's been some sort of there's been some shifts. Like there's been some conversations where like a man was very honest with me about how he was interested, but I was pushing him away, like subconsciously, like I was like, oh my gosh, he told me about myself. And all I could do was say, thank you. I listened. And he was like giving me examples, clear examples of me showing like, okay, so you're saying this one thing, but in order to protect yourself, you like very much, there's a box, like if it's not in a certain time frame or you know how you want it, it's not happening. And I was like, wow, thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate it. And I don't know in any other season would I've been able to hear it in a way that I could actually use it, moving forward.
Yeah. And you said this has happened since you've been hypnotized?
Yes. Well, actually, so the conversation where the guy told me about myself was just last Saturday. So it's just been a little over a week. But the hypnotherapy was July 5th. And so inside the exercise, my subconscious was talking to me about trust.
Mm.
So there's a couple of exercises that I did in this session. And I was like, wow, this is interesting because I'm on the defense more than people I think even realize. So if someone, again, like if I'm not leading the ship and someone is trying to lead the ship, that's my face. Like but why? Like, why can't I? I'm fine over here.
Oh man.
And so I think that ever since that subconscious conversation with myself around trust, I was like, wow, this is, I might need to explore this. This makes sense in terms of how I'm relating to men and how they even view partnership with me or collaboration with me at all. And so it's something for me to take a look at.
Yeah, that's a whole nother episode again.
What, do you need me on for a week? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, there's just so much. Like I mean, yeah, we got a lot of episodes to do. It's gonna be crazy. Oh man. Okay. What's on your bucket list to learn or do?
What's on my bucket list to learn or do? So, gosh, like I don't mean to sound one note because I was gonna say, so like my bucket list, so I have 3 things on my bucket list. One I've already done, and then I have 2 more to do. So one was to be on Wheel of Fortune. And so I was on Wheel of Fortune in 2011. It actually sparked my move to LA. So that's a whole other aside, but it was an amazing experience. My second would be for Mint Condition to perform at my wedding. So Mint Condition is my all-time favorite group. I love them.
Oh, wow.
So, and it could end up being another special occasion, but I've always specifically seen it as they are the people who are singing. Yeah. And then third, I mean, I've mentioned her already. I want to perform Single Ladies with Beyonce. So
we definitely have to make that happen. we have to make those 2 things happen.
I thought maybe, at some point I hire her for a film, and then sometime on our downtime, I'm like, B, like we're both Carters, so let's just do half of the routine, something. So hopefully that will happen.
Nice. Is there anything you want to unlearn?
That's a great question. Yes. So this whole thing with trust, I would like to unlearn. Like, I don't know that I'm trusting of others in a deep way. Like, I trust my friends and family, but in terms of people actually stepping in the gap for me when I'm in need, That's actually like a huge fear. And I've had experience, a little bit of experience with that, where I've asked for help and it's not happened. And then I'm like, this is why I don't ask for help. But I also think it's connected to my father not being around. I think it's connected to a few things. So I'd like to unlearn that for sure. So I might write that down, when we're done. Like, okay, Kristen, because it's always, it's up to me. Like, it's up to us if we want to learn or unlearn things. It's not anyone else's responsibility but our own. But that one is a tough one because I have learned to be very self-reliant.
Yeah. And I'm sure you can imagine how something like that also have downstream impacts. Even the conversation, the piece we talked about earlier with your relationships with other men, in a romantic sphere. So yeah, I mean that can be a big piece.
Yeah.
Can you think of any advice that you would give your younger self?
I would say, honestly, trust the journey and it will all work out in the end. Honestly, there were so many days I can think about my 20s being very angsty in a way that I don't think most people would even assume, because I've always been the optimistic one. But I think in interacting with people or making decisions, I think there was always sort of this chatter in the background for whatever reason about what I was doing. Like, I always felt like I was second guessing things
Mm.
and still achieving very well. And I think that this is a very common thing. I think a lot of us spend a lot of time in our heads. And I'll say, moving into my 30s, what I have really enjoyed is going with my going with my intuition and feeling my way through everything and really trusting the journey and trusting myself. And even knowing if it ends up being something that's not a good move, and I'm saying, I'm like, no, everything is a lesson. So yeah, I would say trusting the journey and learn to have fun. And even in the season or even in the moment where it might be tight, always try to find a chuckle, always try to find a laugh in what you're learning through and going through, because you will get through it. And I would also say, and I heard this from someone about a week ago, if we have the blessing to keep breathing, the sun always comes up and the moon always appears as well. So even in a day that's tight, you're going to see the moon, you're going to see the sun, you're going to get through it. So just remembering that, I would say to my younger self for sure.
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier, or interest, or yeah, I'll say interest in financial literacy. Uh, what's the best advice you've received about money?
The best advice that I have received about money. Hmm. I'm trying to think what's the best advice I've received and also used, because I became debt free last year. And honestly, so I would say be patient with yourself in terms of paying down debt. So be patient with yourself. But in terms of actual spending money, spend what you have. Like, don't spend what you don't have, really. I would say that. And also be mindful of how you spend money, in terms of, are you spending, like, what's the psychology around your spending? So taking an opportunity to think about that, like, what's the psychology around how you spend, how you save, and all of that. So I know that was a few things, but that would be the best advice I've received about money, would be understanding the psychology around your spending, and then be mindful of spending what you have, not like frivolous credit cards where you don't have it, but that's standing in the gap for you.
Mm. So what was the genesis of your financial literacy journey or quest to become debt free?
So in 2014, my brother moved out to LA with me. So I'd lived in LA from 2011 to now. And so my brother and I had decided that we were going to get an apartment together. But when we did, the financial responsibility, well, he didn't keep his end of the bargain for a number of reasons. I don't think it was purposeful, but in that moment, I realized, oh wow, I've been living paycheck to paycheck and it's just been me. So I can balance and manage like all my debt. But when there's an emergency that happens or a situation that happens, I have nothing, I have no cushion. And so that situation exposed to me that I did not, one, I didn't have financial flexibility, but I also was very close to like a financial fallout. And so we didn't live together very long before he went back east. And so in that moment where I had to handle the entire apartment myself, it was the first time I had to ask very close family and friends if I could borrow money from them. And I explained the situation. I explained what I needed, when I would pay them back. And in that moment, I said, I will never put myself in that situation again. And so, yes, it rocks some things with trust, like we talked about before, but it also unearthed me being really cognizant and mindful about my spending and getting myself together. So, like I said, I felt like I worked on a number of hit shows, but had nothing to show for it. I hadn't made saving a priority. That's really what it was. I had any savings that I had, I made a short film or a new project. I didn't see saving as a priority. And so in 2014, I got really serious. So in 2015, I sublet my spot and then I moved back to New Jersey. And so I was able to save some money that way. And then also started figuring out a way to work multiple shows as well as becoming a consultant. So I do a lot of resume consultancy and a lot of development. And I tried to think about different streams of income. So that's when I really started getting myself together, I'd say 2015 and 16, and then became very passionate about paying down my debt. So I was able to do it pretty quickly. That I didn't realize that I could do it as quickly as I did, but it changed my perception of finances. And also because I never thought I could be debt free. I would put it on my goal sheet and take it off. Like every year, like when I would like set my goal sheet for the year, I'm like, I don't even see how this is possible. And so one thing, and then I'll be done. One particular year, I was paying off like the minimum balance for my city cards, and I made a mistake. So I think I owed like, you know, $50 for, but instead of me putting 50.00, I put in like 5,000. I did not have 5,000 to pay them, but basically like the transaction went through as if I was paying 5,000. So the next day my account showed a zero balance. I was like, what, wait a second, how is this happening? One, I'm going to go into complete negative digits in my checking account. I was freaking out. What I ended up realizing is that if you don't have the money, they actually cancel the transaction. But that particular day when my account says zero, I took a screenshot and I printed it out and I put it on my wall. And so it actually still have it on my wall. And so it was saying a zero balance. I was like, at some point I'm going to get there. This happened for a reason, Kristen, because I never make a mistake and put in the wrong amount that I'm paying.
Yeah.
So for whatever reason that needed to happen, but that particular screenshot stayed on my wall until I got to zero in real life.
Nice. What has been the toughest thing you've had to tackle, and what helped you get through it?
The toughest thing that I've had to tackle as an adult, or just in any
In life,
setting?
just in life.
I would say disbelief. So in high school, so I went to a, a top a top 10 boarding school. And so sure, on the one hand, you're like really excited that you're going to a really popular school or well-known school, a prestigious school. But once I got there, I didn't believe that I could succeed. So my grades had dropped drastically. I felt like socially I wasn't fitting in at school or at home. And so I think, hit a depression in ninth grade. So in ninth grade, I had developed two stress conditions. Um, One where like my nose bled at night. So if I got upset, my nose would just bleed. And also something called trichotillomania, which is like I would like pull out my eyelashes and my eyebrows. So like I didn't realize I was doing it. But I would come home from school like during vacations and my mom would be like, why is half of your eyebrow missing? And I'm like, I don't know. And it took me a couple of years to I watched Sally Jesse Raphael one summer and she was reporting on it and I was like, oh my gosh, like I have that, like it's a thing. But anyway, I say all this to say that in ninth grade, I really no longer believed in myself. And so my mom, the summer after my sophomore year of high school, my mom quit her job and we ran 2 to 3 miles a day. I said affirmations while I was running. I read a bunch of books by African American authors. So I read like the autobiography of Malcolm X. I read Excellence Without Excuse, The Souls of Black Folk, and I came back to Groton. That's the school I went to, Groton School. I went back to school a different kid. My grade point average rose 13 points. I ran 6 different organizations. I started a dance program. They have a dance program now and a performing arts center. We didn't have that back then. And so like I call on that experience a lot. I've never faced something harder than not believing in yourself. Like you can face any other stuff as long as it's like, okay, I got this. Even if there's some moments of doubt, but in a season where like I really genuinely did not believe I'd be able to make it through to the next grade or go to the college of my dreams or whatever, because all of those things, you have all of those pressures as a kid and trying to compete and all those things. So I would say that's the toughest thing that I've had to overcome, and so I call on that experience quite a bit now.
No, that's an amazing transformation. Um, you interestingly enough, you use Malcolm's story. Was his transformation an inspiration as well? Was that part of?
Yeah, for sure. But I think reading about these greats, it was just like by any means necessary, literally for Malcolm, but I think for just just understanding the mindset of these authors
Yeah,
and understanding that there's so many other circumstances that other people have gone through, not in comparison or to say, oh, you went through something deeper than I did, but to really hunker down and say it's all a choice.
yeah,
Like you choose to be great, you choose to overcome, you choose to look whatever said enemy in the face, and that could be an enemy in your mind. It could, whatever you pull from, it's a choice for what your next step is. And that's something that really moves me forward now because there's so much going on in the world. Folks have physical ailments and diseases, or people have passed tragically and all of those things. And yes, that sadness is valid and all of that, but there's a decision to overcome that, to be your best self and to keep trying each day and to keep waking up each day and to keep moving your goals forward and your dreams forward and your family forward. And so um, I really love talking about that stuff, and I really love digging into that stuff because you'll see a pattern of really great people. No matter what the circumstances that they went through, it was a choice to be great.
yeah. Where do you feel most at home and happy?
Hmm. Where do I feel most at home and happy? I mean, thankfully, my humble abode. I would say it's not even a physical location. It's like wherever there's joy, wherever I can express joy and love and laughter. So I'd say a lot of times, like, it makes me think of like Thanksgiving. It makes me think of Friday night fish fries with my family, my mom. Um, and even just like I said, being in my own home and being just in peace. So anywhere I can fully express myself, that's where I feel at home.
Yeah. What qualities or character traits do you admire in other people?
The qualities and character traits that I admire in other people, I would say honesty and resilience. I really respond a lot to resilience and the ability to just fight through. I would say also thinking beyond what's currently happening. So being a visionary and thinking beyond what's currently present to get to your next. And also, I guess, someone that's optimistic as well. So those characteristics, but someone who's a fighter for sure.
Yeah. When I say forgiveness, what comes to mind?
My mind went blank. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing.
Okay, that's good. Let's
I
just leave it there. Let's leave that there. That's for episode, I don't know, the six. I don't know, because there's so many things we have to do. So, that's for the sixth one. That's
oh
not
man.
even. But yeah, that's interesting. Your mind went blank. Um, all right, for a fun question. If you won the lottery tomorrow, what will you do?
Honestly, I would pay off my mom's bills and my grandmother's bills and save the rest. I think just being financially free now, I think about things so differently. There's nothing really I want to splurge on. I'm grateful that I have honestly all that I want um, when it comes down to a material sense. So I just want to make sure other people feel free.
Yeah. Is there anyone that you would like to thank or express your appreciation for that you haven't had the chance to yet?
Express to them or just here in
Yeah,
general?
yeah, yeah. So, okay, so let me tell you why I have this question. So I notice when people pass, everyone says, "Oh, you know how great this person is," and all these how much impact this person had on their life. And
Mm-hmm.
then inevitably, someone in the group says, we need to give people their flowers while they can smell them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it stops. And literally, the same group of people, right, will not um, do what they just did to the dead person. And we all have, people that um, we should be thanking or showing our appreciation for. Um, but for whatever reason, it could be just the business of life. We never really get a chance to. And so, with this, what I'm doing with this is I want to encourage people, and the fact that this is recorded, so it's almost immortalized in a way. That your response, you send you just send someone the video and just tell them, "Hey, check it out. If you're in a rush, just go to minute, whatever the minute is when you're expressing your thanks." And when people, like it really does something to someone to see that, this other person actually appreciates them so much that they're publicly willing to express it. So that's the point of this, this question. So I also want you to say that if you do have someone, to state their name as well, so that it can be clear to the world. It's kind of like when you're getting married. You know,
Huh. I try really hard to acknowledge people while they're here.
uh-huh.
So, especially now because we've just seen so much transition this year in particular. So, there's nobody new that's coming to mind, to be honest with you. I wish I had, because I feel like I talked to my mom a lot about this. Um, so I would just say that I'm appreciative. So, mommy, I'm definitely appreciative to you for all that you have continued to do and for who, ooh, excuse me. Uh, I just appreciate who you are and just the resilience that you have and just the love and the energy that you passed on to me. So that's what
Nice,
I would say.
nice. Thank you, mommy. Our final question: how
Mhm.
do you define success?
I define success as freedom. So the freedom to be creative, the freedom to move about in your life without being tied down in a way that like contractually tied down.
Mm,
I feel like just being in the business, I feel like I know a lot of that. And so that's what I would view success as freedom.
it's a great answer, and it's a perfect way to end. It was great. We connected, we politicked, and we will definitely do this again in the near future. I mean, I can think of at least 3 full episodes just focused on a specific subject that we could tackle. But no, this is great, and thank you.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
Yes, yes.